Order, order. We start with questions. Secretary of State for Transport, Mark Ferguson.
Question number 1, Mr. Speaker.
Secretary of State.
With your permission, Mr. Speaker, I would like to answer this question along with question number 7. Growth is the #1 mission of this government, and transport connectivity is key. We're getting on with delivering this government's plan for change by delivering the basics of a better transport system, cutting journey times and improving connections. That means improving the everyday journeys which drive growth and improve lives.
Mark Ferguson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the Secretary of State for her response. Can she update me on conversations the Department has had with Gateshead Council about the state of Gateshead flyover? It is a 400-tonne barrier to jobs running through the middle of our town. It's holding back businesses and growth, and it's stopping us achieving our full potential.
Secretary of State.
I do recall meeting with my honourable friend just before Christmas, and I appreciate how critical the resolution of this issue is to his constituents and the wider area. My officials, along with colleagues from the North East Combined Authority, have been meeting regularly with Gateshead Council to build the case for regeneration of the area facilitated by the planned demolition of the flyover. And I know my colleague, the honourable member, the Minister for the Future of Roads, visited in January to see the issues for herself.
Mr. McAllister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. An essential transport system in Scotland is our ferry network to the islands. Island communities have been effectively cut off at times due to ferry chaos, disruptive cancellations and expensive repairs. Mr. Speaker, the SNP has decided to inflict a 10% fare hike and sent a contract for 7 new ferries overseas to Poland. The Scottish Government is depriving Scotland's iconic shipbuilding industry of much-needed growth and jobs. Can the UK Government not assist the Scottish Government with fundamental reform of how we procure and run ferries in our country?
Mr. Speaker, it is well known to all of us in this House that Scotland has a world-renowned shipbuilding industry, and so it does sadden me that under the SNP, Scotland's ferries are being built elsewhere. I'm aware that Scottish colleagues want to see reforms to how ferries are run and procured, and in the meantime, I would urge the Scottish Government to reconsider sending vital jobs and investment abroad.
Joe Robertson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I welcome the Secretary of State's comments on improving everyday transport for UK residents, and also her comments on Scottish ferries. Would she agree with me that my constituency on the Isle of Wight shouldn't be left behind in the government's transport plans? And would she agree to intervening and looking at all options in order to regulate private equity, which currently we're entirely reliant on for our connectivity with the UK mainland, which is harming our local economy, and look at the potential of empowering any future combined mayoral authority with some regulatory power over the Solent cross-Solent transport?
Mr. Speaker, I had a useful meeting with the honourable member for the Isle of Wight West about this issue a couple of weeks ago, and I'm afraid he slightly beat the honourable gentleman to it in suggesting that we consider what powers might be available through any future mayoral combined authority. Let me assure the honourable gentleman that we are speaking to stakeholders across the island, including the ferry operators, to understand these issues in more depth and how we might make improvements going forward. This engagement will continue, and my friend, the Maritime Minister, will be having a meeting on this in due course with all stakeholders.
Leadbitter.
The regional growth is really important to the wider economy. There's been a huge focus on London airports, Heathrow, Gatwick and London Luton in recent weeks. What efforts is the Transport Secretary taking to address regional growth and regional airport investment?
I meet with my colleagues in the Scottish Government regularly, and this is an issue that I will be discussing with her. The potential expansion of Heathrow is very important with regard to regional connectivity to our other airports, and if there are specific issues that the honourable gentleman would like to bring to my attention with regard to Scottish airports, I would be very happy to have that conversation with him.
Madam Jogee.
Question 2, Mr. Speaker.
Minister.
Good morning, Mr. Speaker. Transport that meets local, regional and national needs is vital to delivering this government's missions. I'm determined that communities like those in Newcastle-under-Lyme will benefit. The Chancellor announced over £650 million for local transport outside of city regions at the autumn budget, and the Secretary of State will confirm the allocations soon.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. A well-connected transport system is critical to the local economy, a healthy population and a sense of pride in our communities. However, in Newcastle-under-Lyme, many of my constituents in Betley, Bradwell, Wolstanton, Audley and the rest have made clear that they cannot access medical or retail services due to a lack of local bus provision, hurting our shops and the health and well-being of my constituents. So will the Minister come to Newcastle-under-Lyme to meet with me so we can establish a path forward to get my constituents the bus services they need?
Whilst I'd always welcome the opportunity to meet with my honourable friend, I would urge him to lobby Staffordshire County Council, who will receive £11.1 million in bus funding in 25-26, consisting of £5.8 million in revenue and £5.3 million in capital, specifically to support and improve bus services and infrastructure across Staffordshire, including in his constituency.
Narinder Singh Josan.
Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With permission, I'd like to answer this question along with question 17. The Government has shown it will support the UK aviation sector by backing airport expansions that promote economic growth while meeting climate and environmental standards. We have invited proposals for a third runway at Heathrow and introduced a package of measures to encourage the production and use of sustainable aviation fuel.
Narinder Singh Josan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Aviation is a crucial part of the UK economy, with regional airports supporting jobs and communities across the UK, but with many more opportunities ahead. Will the Minister make representations into the industrial strategy to both support the development of hydrogen fuel and to develop the associated infrastructure to make hydrogen-powered aviation a reality?
Well, the Honourable Member is a great champion in this area. In addition to the sustainable aviation fuel that I mentioned, we recognise the role that hydrogen can play in decarbonising aviation because it literally produces zero emissions at the tail pipe. We've invested £63 million in advanced fuel funds announced by the Chancellor, which will also help available for power-to-liquid sustainable aviation fuel projects.
Spence.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the Minister for his answer. As the Prime Minister pointed out yesterday, Stansted Airport is a huge employer and training provider for my constituency of Harlow. Can I ask the Minister what work his department is doing alongside the DWP to work with employers and training providers in the aviation sector?
The Honourable Member is a great champion for the airport in his constituency. I acknowledge that. We engage with airports to understand their plans. Stansted have committed to creating over 5,000 jobs from their £1.1 billion expansion and have established an employment skills academy to boost careers and the Aerozone to deliver STEM outreach. I encourage the member to carry on engaging as he has been doing.
Sir Roger Gale.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I know that the Aviation Minister will understand the need for a major diversion field in the southeast of England. So with that in mind, and in the light of my question to the Prime Minister yesterday, will he welcome the potential reopening of Manston Airport in Kent in October of 2028, and with that, the huge investment and growth potential that will create?
The Honourable Member has raised this with me both while I was in opposition and while in government. He's a doughty champion for this campaign. Manston need to come forward with their plans. That will be subject to a development consent order. We will then judge it.
Jim Shannon.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and can I thank the Minister very much for his answer. Minister, to improve employment and training opportunities for young people in schools, the careers in cabin crews or as a pilot, or indeed in aerospace systems, Spirit Aerospace Systems in Belfast and engineering, there are lots of opportunities. So what can be done to work alongside the Education Minister to ensure that the opportunities there can become apparent for all those young people who will be our future in this country? Thank you.
Well, Mr. Speaker, it gives me the great pleasure to wish the Honourable Member many happy returns for his 70th birthday this week. I think he's actually asking to be retrained, is he, in aviation skills. But Northern Ireland is a great place with its three great airports, the two in Belfast and London, Derry City Airport as well, which gives people a lot of skills, also in the aerospace industry, that they can, there's no limit that they can achieve by getting into this industry in Northern Ireland and travelling the world over, practising their skills in it.
Dixon.
Question 4, Mr Speaker.
Minister.
Mr Speaker, with your permission, I'd like to answer this question along with question number 6.
The Minister, Shadow Minister Greg Smith.
Thank. We all think of my honourable friend's birthday, Mr Speaker, and I add my birthday wishes to him. Mr Speaker, on the aviation sector, there are significant muddled messages being sent to them. On the one hand, the Climate Change Committee, upon whose altar the government appears to worship, want flights to fall by 2030, a massive blow to our aviation sector, whilst the government equally say they want growth and they want to expand airports. So who is going to win? Will ministers stand up to the Climate Change Committee, or are we just going to end up with bigger, emptier airports?
Well, the Climate Change Committee advise, we decide. We're not going to take any lectures on tough decisions on this time. I remember the former member for Uxbridge as Foreign Secretary concocting a trip to Kabul to avoid a debate in 2018 on the third expansion plans of Heathrow. We're getting on with growing aviation in this country.
Greg Smith.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. So, if it's tough decisions the Minister wants, I invite him to look at what happened in the budget of broken promises, where air passenger duty went up significantly. For example, a couple flying to New York will pay £204 in tax. That is a 16% increase. So does the Minister not see that he needs to stand up to the Treasury if he's going to stand up for the aviation sector? Otherwise, he's doing what socialists always do, tax growth out of existence.
I thank the Honourable. I enjoy the Honourable member trying to polarise this chamber. He's sort of all right at it. But we're getting on with decisions around Luton, Stansted, Heathrow, growing the aviation sector in this comes in. And yes, tax is an important element to this, but we have seen in this country in the last 2 months the biggest demand ever, even before the pandemic, in people wanting to fly, which is testament to the work that we're doing now in government to get on with the decisions that should have been taken years ago.
Anna Dixon.
Again, question 4, please, Mr Speaker.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. With your permission, I'd like to answer this question along with question number 6. The government recognises the importance of promoting active travel. We recently announced almost £300 million of active travel funding, enough for up to 300 miles of new footways and cycleways. We will say more very soon on the next steps of the third cycling and walking investment strategy.
Anna Dixon.
Thank you. Increasing active travel by 50% in England would result in 1.8 million fewer GP visits and 4 million fewer sick days. I therefore welcome the government's commitment, reiterated by the Minister, to build 300 miles of new cycle lanes and walkways. Would the Minister meet with me and the Friends of Wharfdale Greenway to see how we can secure investment to open up this amazing active travel corridor in Wharfdale and boost the health of my constituents?
Minister.
Our investment in active travel will lead to fewer sick days and millions more journeys, walked, wheeled and cycled every year. More than £17 million has been allocated to West Yorkshire for active travel. I'll be happy to meet with my honourable friends, and will also ask Active Travel England to make contact with the Friends of Wharfdale Greenway about this specific scheme.
Maureen Burke.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Earlier this week, I was delighted to welcome St Paul's Youth Forum from my constituency to Parliament. They do amazing work to provide opportunities to young people, no matter their background. One example of their work is on the on-bike scheme, which helps young people stay active by offering repairs and bike loans. Will the Minister join me in celebrating the fantastic work of St Paul's Youth Forum, and would he consider visiting to see their community work in action?
Minister.
I'm really pleased to hear about St Paul's. Giving young people the skills to cycle is so important, and that's why we're investing £30 million a year in bikeability cycle training in England. Active travel is a devolved matter, but I'm sure my counterpart in the Scottish Government will consider a visit.
Just Barbara.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Active travel in Eastbourne is being undermined by the poor quality of our roads. You've got the likes of potholes on Pacific Drive, Upperton Road, King's Drive, as well as Milford Drive, but also poor investment in pedestrian crossings, so that residents in the Hawthorne Estate can't cross the road safely on Carew Road or the Avenue. Will the Minister urge Conservative-run East Sussex County Council to get a grip of our roads and our crossings and properly invest hard-earned taxpayers' money in addressing these transport challenges?
I thank the honourable gentleman for his question. I will indeed join him in calling on the Council to do just that. Obviously, there's been a 40% uplift in terms of the funding to tackle our highway backlog and potholes. Some of that money, of course, can be used on improving walkways and cycleways as well, which are part of the highway.
We're Robertson.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Women cycle a lot less than men, 71% women compared to 54% of men. Safety concerns are the main barrier. That gender gap is not acceptable. What is the government doing to address that?
I think the Honourable Lady raises a very important question, an issue which I'm very passionate about. You'll be aware that the Government will be bringing forward a new road safety strategy, the first one in over a decade. Part of that will, of course, be looking at how we can address that imbalance and the perception and actual issues with safety on our highways.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Question number 5.
This government has announced a £500 million road maintenance funding uplift for next year, as well as £300 million for active travel schemes. This will improve road conditions and safety for all road users, including delivery riders.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Two-wheeling couriers working in the gig economy experience more road dangers than average riders due to time pressures from employers. Research from UCL shows that gig economy riders are 3 times as likely to report damage to their vehicle and nearly twice as likely to report injury. So can the Minister tell me what steps have been taken, including with employers of gig economy riders and other stakeholders, to protect gig economy riders and reduce dangers for them and other road users and pedestrians?
Minister.
Well, I'm very grateful to my honourable friend for raising this important issue, which I know will be familiar to many people across the House. In December, my honourable friend, the Minister for Local Transport, wrote to the main food delivery companies to remind them of the importance the government places on the safety of food delivery riders and other road users, and to remind them of their obligations. It is essential that delivery riders follow the highway code, despite the time pressure they're sometimes operating under.
Matt Turman.
Question number 8, please, Mr Speaker.
Minister.
Mr Speaker, with your permission, I would like to answer this question along with number 10. Improving local bus services is vital to kick-starting economic growth. Through a bus services bill and the £1 billion we're investing to support and improve bus services, we're taking definitive action to help deliver the better, more reliable bus services that passengers deserve throughout the country. I was delighted, of course, to see the results of the recent Transport Focus survey, which shows that passenger satisfaction has actually increased to 83%. I know we can and will do more.
Martin.
Thank you, Mr Speaker, and I thank the Minister for his response. In Watford, private bus operators such as Arriva and others change bus routes on a whim, usually providing less frequent services and sometimes withdrawing them altogether. This leaves Hertfordshire County Council scrambling to plug gaps in service via expensive contracts. Does my right honourable friend agree with me that there must be a better way to run local buses, which puts passengers first and foremost?
It is vital that passengers have access to a stable and reliable bus network, and our bus services bill includes a measure that offers greater protection for services from being arbitrarily cancelled or reduced. Alongside our investment in buses, including £12.2 million for Hertfordshire, this government is taking the action to help local leaders improve their bus services.
Olivia Bailey.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Scores of my constituents, including Carol, have told me they oppose the removal of the number 15 bus service. in parts of Calcott, which has meant they can't get to work, the supermarket, the GP or even the food bank. I'm proud of our bus service in Reading, which is a shining example of a locally run service, and I'm glad to see the government committed to strengthening services even further. But can I ask the Minister whether he agrees with me that local routes need to serve all of those who need them in every part of our communities? And will he back my campaign to reinstate the number 15 bus in Royal Avenue and Garston Crescent?
I, of course, agree with my honourable friend, and I would encourage her to continue to speak with the operator to understand if changes can be made to the route to better meet her constituents' needs. Our buses bill, alongside the £2.4 million for Reading and the £1.6 million for West Berkshire, will give local leaders the tools to deliver better bus services for passengers.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Local bus services are part of the integrated travel plans for my constituents in South West Hertfordshire, but they also rely on Transport for London to commute typically into London. One of the frustrations my community has is the concession fares offered to London residents who live very, very close to the border to Hertfordshire that my constituents don't benefit from. As accessibility to public transport remains one of my top priorities, can the Minister push Transport for London to extend these concessions to every TfL user, regardless of their address?
Of course, this is a devolved matter, but I appreciate that TfL also subsidise many of those routes outside of that boundary. But we're happy to pick this up further with them outside of the chamber. Ellie.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In my constituency of North Herefordshire, bus services are a lifeline for residents of all ages, young and old. And I was shocked to hear at a recent meeting with Hereford Sixth Form College that 21 students this year have had to stop their studies because of problems with the reliability and cost of public transport. Our older residents get free bus travel, but our young people do not. Does the Minister agree with me that it's essential that every young person is enabled to access education, employment and training? And will he meet with me to discuss how the Department of Transport can work with the Department of Education to ensure all young people can access these opportunities?
I thank the Honourable Lady for her question. The English National Travel Scheme, the ENCTS, provides off-peak bus travel to those eligible with disabilities and those at state pension age, currently 66. Local authorities, though, do have the power to go above and beyond their statutory obligations. And obviously, areas including my Honourable Lady's area will have received money from the BSIP funding, which could be used for exactly that. But of course, I'll be more than happy to meet with her to discuss this further. Jeb Bottle.
Number 9, please, Mr. Speaker.
With your permission, Mr. Speaker, I would like to answer this question along with questions numbers 16 and 20. We are starting to see train performance stabilise following a decade of decline, with cancellations now no longer rising. We have ended the national industrial dispute, bringing passenger confidence back with a 7% increase in passenger journeys. Furthermore, we have made station-specific performance information available for the first time as a visible sign that we are determined to improve standards.
Thanks, Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to thank the Secretary of State for her answer. In rural towns, rail links are vital to keep our communities connected. However, many stations, like Shepley Station in my constituency, have poor accessibility for disabled or elderly travellers. Could the Secretary of State offer an update on the Department's plans to upgrade accessibility at Shepley Station through the Access for All programme and through its consideration in the business case submitted by Kirklees Council to ensure all residents can use it?
I can assure my honourable friend that accessibility is at the heart of our plans for rail reform, and whilst I'm not yet able to specifically comment on next steps for access for all projects at specific stations such as Shepley in her constituency, I do want to assure my honourable friend that we are committed to improving the accessibility of the railway, and it will be a priority for Great British Railways.
Natasha Irons.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Croydon Area Remodelling Scheme is a plan that provides upgrades to East Croydon and Norwood Junction Station in my constituency, and that improves services across the Brighton Main Line and most of the South East. However, after the previous government withdrew funding for this vital infrastructure project, passengers continue to suffer delays and opportunities for growth across the South East remain untapped. So with the government's mission for growth and increased demand for rail services to Gatwick Airport, will she agree to look again at the Croydon Area Remodelling Scheme, and will she meet with me to discuss how investing in Croydon's transport infrastructure could unlock growth across the South East?
Mr Speaker, I'm sorry to say that the previous government recklessly overpromised on rail infrastructure projects, misleading passengers who have struggled to access the services that they deserve for far too long. In fact, I'd go as far as saying that Conservative ministers travelled around the country promising rail users the moon on a stick, paid for with fantasy money. I would gladly meet with my honourable friend to discuss the Croydon Area Modelling Scheme.
Testimony.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. The Secretary of State will well know the planned engineering works between Didcot Parkway and Swindon and in the Paddington area, which are going to cause significant disruption between London and Bristol and South Wales this Sunday and next Sunday. The major routes, disruption on the major routes causes massive chaos on the rural routes that are accessed via Bristol and so further to the southwest. Then there is the closure of the M4 between Bath and Bristol, which means there are no buses between Swindon and Bristol on those days. The alert for about longer journeys, busier trains, cancellations and delays, the advice given is that we should travel the day before or the day after, which doesn't seem very adequate to me. So can the Secretary of State please pull rail, bus and road bodies together to avoid clashes like this, particularly when we face 6 years of further disruption as a result of the HS2 works, which will not benefit the South West in the slightest.
The Honourable Lady makes a fair point, I think, and having readjusted my own travel plans for this weekend, I do feel her pain somewhat. This government does recognise that performance on Sundays, in particular, irrespective of planned engineering works, has not been good enough on GWR, and we are working actively to address this. For example, GWR are continuing to make tactical interventions to improve the resilience of the operation in relation to timetabling, diagramming and rostering. The wider point she makes about join up between modes is one that I will raise with officials in my department.
Jess Bramford.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Given that 1 in 5 trains operated by Southern Rail arriving at the Chichester station is late and that there is no fast service connecting Chichester to London, what steps are being taken to directly improve train punctuality and reliability for my constituents, especially considering that an annual ticket is nearly £8,000?
The Honourable Lady is right to demand excellent train services for her constituent, and that is what this government is determined to deliver. We are working with the train operating companies on plans to improve timetabling, the availability of staff and rostering of staff, and I'm happy to take away the specific issues that she raises in relation to Chichester and provide her with more detail on the specific intervention plan on that line.
Shadow Minister Jerome May.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. We're told that nationalisation is the answer to improve passenger rail performance. So if that's the case, surely it would make sense to start by nationalising the worst performing operators first. Cross Country comes last out of all train operating companies for passenger satisfaction. We know it's not complying with its obligations, so the Minister could call in that contract. So why isn't this the first operator to be nationalised under GBR?
We made a commitment to bring the train operating companies back into public ownership without any cost to the taxpayer. And so when the franchises expire, that is the appropriate point at which to bring the train operating companies back into public ownership. If there is terrible performance, we can seek to break a contract earlier. I'm pleased there are some improvements on Cross Country. We are seeing improvements on the train operating companies that have been brought into public ownership, particularly if you look at passenger journeys and revenue growth on TransPennine and LNER. There's a really positive story to tell there.
Jerome May.
Well, I thank the Secretary of State for that answer. She does duck the point that she could, if she had the political will, bring Cross Country into in-house now. But it's not the first operator to come under GBR, or even close to it. Under current plans, the government will not get round to tackling Cross Country until 2031. In the meantime, highly effective private operators like C2C and Greater Anglia, with some of the highest levels of customer satisfaction, are going to be subjected to dislocating nationalisation this year, Mr Speaker. Why is the government forcing nationalisation in areas where current services are liked and sitting on their hands where people are crying out for improvements?
I'm not sure he listened to the answer to the previous question, to be honest, when I gave him a very clear answer about how we are bringing the train operating companies into public ownership in a way that offers really good value for money for the British taxpayer. He asked about cross-country, and I can tell him that the number of cancellations on cross-country has reduced markedly since the start of this year, and that cross-country, whilst we recognise that there is more to do, is on a really good improvement trajectory.
Tom Gordon.
Question 11, Mr Speaker.
Secretary of State.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. We are committed to increasing railway capacity. For instance, the delivery of HS2 Phase 1 will more than double long-distance seated capacity between London and the West Midlands, and many projects which will increase capacity are being funded through the rail network enhancements pipeline, particularly in the North and the Midlands.
Tom Gordon.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I'd like to start by paying tribute to someone who is described as a pillar of the Harrogate business community, Brian Dunsby OBE, who tirelessly campaigned to improve our railways, including getting the direct service from London to Harrogate. One of the issues that we spoke about before he sadly passed away was the issues with the Leeds to York line via Harrogate. When you get to Knaresborough, it becomes single track, and that has an implication for the ability to run a higher levels of services, and delays. Once you have one delay, the entire day can suddenly fall very quickly. So I'm launching a campaign to see the dualling of that line between Knaresborough and York to make sure that we have railways that are fit for purpose, that can serve our communities. So will the Secretary of State join me, and will she offer any advice on how we can go about securing that investment?
May I express my condolences on the loss of the rail campaigner and his constituent that he mentioned. I am aware that Network Rail are looking at both electrification schemes and potentially longer platform schemes on stations that serve his constituency. I recognise that he is talking about dual tracking as well, and may I suggest that he seeks a meeting with the Rail Minister in the other place to discuss this in more detail.
Jacob Colley. Good luck with it.
Speaker, my constituents in Newcastle have no trains on a Sunday until 3 p.m. due to long-standing Network Rail staffing issues in signal boxes. With Newcastle's growing population, it is unacceptable that residents are left without transport for much of the day on Sunday. I thank the Rail Minister for his engagement with me so far, but can she say more about how we are improving the reliability of train services?
I am very clear that we have to have a 7-day railway where trains are as likely to turn up on a Sunday afternoon as they are on a Monday morning. We are working with train operating companies across the country, including those that serve his constituents in Uttoxeter, and I'm very happy to provide more information to him in writing about the specific action we are taking in his constituency.
Liberal Democrat spokesperson Paul Colley.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. In 2017, South Western Railways ordered 90 new Arterio trains to increase capacity in their rail network. These were meant to enter service in 2019. However, now, 6 years later, only 5 are in service, presumably not counting the empty one that sailed by a teeming and seething platform at Wimbledon this morning. With SWR set to be in government hands in 2 months' time, what steps will be taken to ensure these trains are finally brought into service?
I know this is an issue that the Rail Minister is very seized of, and he has spoken to me about it. I understand it relates to issues to do with lighting on platforms and what can be seen from the CCTV cameras and the role of the guard. And so we're across the detail on this, and it's important that these issues are resolved before the trains are brought into public ownership on the 25th of May.
Stone.
Question number 12, please, Mr Speaker.
Stone.
Great Western Railway is currently operating a trial of direct Saturday services between Bristol Temple Meads and Oxford, which call at Swindon. Officials are working with Great Western Railway to explore the feasibility of expanding the current Saturday trial of services between Bristol and Oxford to other days of the week.
Will Stone.
I thank the Minister for her response. Over the past decade, we've seen uncertainty in the rail sector. Can she please reassure me that she will be taking decisions differently to focus on delivery, especially on links like Swindon to Oxford? Thank you.
Well, my honourable friend will know our commitment to Swindon in this ministerial team, we are committed to delivering a unified and simplified rail system that focuses on improved services for passengers and better value for taxpayers. We're actively exploring the feasibility of the proposal he described.
Cameron Thomas.
Morning, Mr Speaker. Question 13, please.
Finished.
The Department is working with the rail industry to improve the performance of rail services in Gloucestershire, whilst Gloucestershire County Council's scheme for the M5 Junction 9 and A46 in Ashchurch is currently being considered as part of the Department's Major Road Network Large Local Majors programme.
Thomas.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I'm very grateful for her response. The Government recently announced a UK Silicon Valley project linking Oxfordshire, Milton Keynes and Cambridge. There was no mention of Gloucestershire with its burgeoning cyber tech and engineering sectors. From Gloucestershire, our primary arterial road eastward to Oxfordshire is the A40, and it's woefully inadequate as a single carriageway. Will the Minister meet with me to develop improved links eastward from Gloucestershire to the benefit of our neighbours in the east?
Yes, of course.
14, Mr Speaker.
Our new maritime decarbonisation strategy, which launched this week, is the latest demonstration of this government's commitment to decarbonising transport. We are overhauling public transport services to make the sustainable choice the most convenient choice, turbocharging the rollout of electric vehicles and charging infrastructure, and making the UK a world leader in the production and use of sustainable aviation fuels.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I'm delighted that our South Yorkshire Labour Mayor Oliver Coppard is bringing local buses back under public control. Does the Minister agree that taking back control of our buses will allow us to deliver on a low-carbon future for local transport services? And what steps is she taking to increase the rollout of zero-emission buses nationwide? Thank you.
Well, I thank my honourable friend for her question, and I too welcome the steps that Mayor Coppard is taking to deliver better bus services for passengers in South Yorkshire. And I know the Minister for Local Transport was delighted to be able to launch our new UK bus manufacturing expert panel in Sheffield earlier this month, which will help ensure the UK remains a leader in bus manufacturing. Expanding the rollout of zero-emission buses is central to our efforts to decarbonise the bus fleet and improve air quality, and our bus services bill will accelerate this by requiring bus operators not to use new non-zero-emission buses.
Zoe Frank.
Speaker, can I ask the Minister what steps the Government is taking to address diesel islands? These are sections of track without electrification, such as those between Reading and my constituency of Guildford, in order that we support the decarbonisation of the transport sector and encourage the transition to cleaner rail travel.
Well, I thank the honourable member for that question. My friend in the other place, the Rail Minister, is very much focused on how we decarbonise our rail sector, as a combination of electrification and extended use of batteries can allow us to do that, and I'm sure he'd be happy to write to her about the specifics of the case she raises.
Tony Vaughan.
Question number 15, Mr Speaker.
Improving access to local bus services throughout England is a priority for this government. Our reforms through the Bus Services Bill, combined with the £23 million we've allocated to Kent County Council in 25-26, will empower local leaders to deliver better bus services for passengers across Kent.
I thank the Minister for his answer. Conservative-run Kent County Council recently confirmed that £9 million of the £10 million grant provided by central government intended to improve bus services will go solely to propping up existing services. This is despite access to bus services declining over the last 14 years in Kent, with key routes being abolished or restricted. My constituents in Broadmead Ward in Folkestone have no weekend bus service into town, for example. So does the Minister agree that this is a shocking indictment of the service the Tories have presided over? And does he agree that change in May at the local elections is how we improve bus services for my constituents?
I couldn't agree with my honourable friend more. I'm absolutely clear that too often local bus services are not delivering for passengers right across the country. And that's why our ambitious reforms to bus services, including through the Buses Bill, will give local leaders the powers they desperately need to reform services to best meet the needs of passengers, including in Kent. I'm proud that our reform to bus funding allocations has meant additional funds for buses across the country, unlike members opposite, who presided over 4.7 million bus miles fewer in Kent alone between 2010 and 2023.
Martin Ridley.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Question number 18, please.
While I'm sympathetic to the concerns of my honourable friend, to date there is not enough evidence to prove that the repeal of the legislation would not adversely impact road safety. Since 1997, holders of car driving licences have not received automatic entitlement to drive minibuses, primarily to improve road safety.
Martin Wrigley.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In my Newton Abbot constituency, we're fortunate to have both Dawlish Community Transport and Newton Abbot Community Transport. They provide vital services for many people who would otherwise be isolated and lonely. However, like many other volunteer groups, they're finding it hard to recruit, particularly drivers for their minibus services. As the Minister says, anyone who took their driving licence before 1997 automatically got a D1 minibus class, as I did. Since then, younger drivers must take a new driving test with associated training and costs of estimated between £800 and £1,800. Will the Secretary of State work with me and to add exceptions for D1 requirements to cover community transport and other volunteer community groups?
It's, I think up to 30% of drivers who take the D1 test unfortunately fail. And so it's important, obviously, when we're considering changes to this, that we have safety at the very forefront of our thinking.
Sam Rushworth.
This government is accelerating the rollout of charging infrastructure. It's up 32% in the 12 months to the 1st of March this year, and engaging with industry to improve consumers' experience, including contactless payments and design standards. Electric vehicles also receive favourable tax rates, and with targeted grants supporting electric vans, taxis and wheelchair-accessible vehicles.
Thank you. Can I thank the Minister for the answer? With 58,000 homes in County Durham, including many in my constituency, unable to charge their vehicles at home, what support is the government giving to innovative local schemes such as curb charging so that we can make electric vehicles more accessible for all of my constituents?
Well, I thank him for that question. He'll be pleased to hear that charge point numbers increased 45% in rural areas, which I know he represents, and that the North East Combined Authority received almost £17.3 million from the local electric vehicle infrastructure fund, which means more public charge points for his constituents. We're also supporting cross-pavement solutions that provide safe charging options for those without driveways, as he describes.
David Davis.
21, sir. I will be followed. Okay. Well, it actually does follow rather well, because in
order, she has to answer the question.
It's lovely that people are so keen. Charge point availability is increasing everywhere. As of the 1st of March, there are over 75,000 UK public charging devices, with one added to the network every 29 minutes. But we recognise there are still regional disparities, and going forward, the local EV Infrastructure Fund will deliver a further 100,000 charge points right across England.
Sir David.
We new boys are still finding our way, Mr. Speaker. The point I want to make to the Minister is that my part of the world, Yorkshire, has the lowest EV charging points per head in the whole country. The National Audit Office has also pointed out that only 15% of charging points are in rural areas, compared with, let's say, 44% in London and the South East. So the net zero aims will collapse if we don't fix the equitable provision of EV charging points. So what's the government going to do to correct those problems?
Well, he's absolutely right to raise those concerns that whilst charge point availability is increasing rapidly, it isn't doing there are those regional disparities and those differences between urban and rural areas. And the local EV infrastructure fund is purposely designed to tackle some of that regional disparity. And as I say, charge points in rural areas have increased by 45% in the last year. The East Riding of Yorkshire, which I know covers his constituency, have received £2.7 million in Levi funding, and I hope that that will deliver the improvements that he's looking for his constituents.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can the Minister just update us on the ZEV mandate consultation and when the sector can be expecting an outcome from it?
Well, I thank my honourable friend for that question. I know that the global challenges facing the automotive industry are significant over the last couple of months during the ZEV mandate consultation. My honourable friend, the Secretary of State, right honourable friend, the Secretary of State and I have met, I think, 95% of the vehicle manufacturers, and we're currently considering very carefully the representations that they and others are made, and we'll be making a further announcement later in the spring.
Warren Sullivan.
22, please, Mr. Speaker.
Minister.
This week we published our maritime decarbonisation strategy, setting out decarbonisation goals along with policy and regulatory measures to support the sector through the journey to net zero transition. The strategy provides clarity to the sector and will unlock investment in clean maritime technologies, ensuring the sector is prepared for a zero-emission future.
Warren Sullivan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It is with some disappointment that the Lower Thames Crossing was announced a couple of days ago to many of my constituents. Will the Minister meet with me to discuss how we can use a small proportion of those tolls to support the maritime sector, in particular the Tilbury-Gravesend ferry, thus reducing congestion and rat running through the villages? Thank you.
Well, I did meet with the honourable member recently about her campaign to reinstate the local ferry. Local ferries are a matter for local transport authorities, competent authorities, and I do call on Kent County Council to help her in this campaign to re-establish that ferry. I know she's working with maritime partners, but I'm happy to meet with her.
Butley.
One, please, Mr. Speaker.
Secretary of State.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to put on record my thanks to all those involved in responding to the major incidents we have seen unfold on land and sea in recent weeks. The collisions of vessels in the North Sea and the fire at the electricity substation serving Heathrow have caused disruption and distress. I'm pleased that recovery has been swift, and I am clear that no stone should be left unturned in identifying the causes of the incidents, nor in learning lessons for the future. Mr. Speaker, I'm also pleased with the work taking place across my department to keep Britain moving. On Monday, we announced what councils need to do to unlock their full share of almost £1.6 billion of investment to repair our broken roads. For the first time, we're asking every council in England to tell us how many potholes they've unfixed to unlock their allocation. And as we strive to make our trains more reliable, I welcome the end of the Avanti West Coast dispute. Transport continues to drive this government's plan for change, unlocking jobs, growth and opportunities for all.
Julia Butler.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Last weekend in my constituency, our Shrewsbury Moves Festival celebrated progress towards our 10-year plan to implement a more inclusive and integrated public transport across our beautiful medieval town. What additional transport does the Department for Transport making available to historic and economically thriving towns like Shrewsbury to combat congestion by enabling more integrated public transport?
My colleague, the Aviation Minister, tells me he was at Shrewsbury Moves on his wedding anniversary and he had a very good time. The Integrated National Transport Strategy will set the long-term vision for transport in England. Different places face different challenges, so we want to enable local leaders to deliver the right transport for communities. This will always include good public transport, as well as schemes which balance the needs of drivers, cyclists and pedestrians on the roads.
Secretary of State Gareth.
Mr. Speaker, when the government handed the ASLEF Trade Union an eye-watering £9 billion pay agreement in the summer, they promised that this would, and I quote, protect passengers from further national strikes. Yet recently on national television, the Secretary of State said that there will, and I again quote, there will be occasions on which strikes will be necessary. Could the Secretary of State please provide the House with an example of a necessary strike?
He will know that I have extensive experience from my time in London where we did take strikes when safety was at risk. And so that would be one direct example I would give him.
Bacon.
Mr. Speaker, in response to her department's recent rail consultation, the Secretary of State will be aware that the trade unions welcomed her plan and said that a just transition to nationalisation will mean levelling up of pay and conditions for rail workers. Now, of course, the cost to the taxpayer for this could be extremely considerable. Would the Secretary of State consider a strike over harmonising pay and conditions to be a necessary strike?
Mr. Speaker, let's be clear. The cost of those national rolling strikes over 2 years was £850 million in lost revenue. So I'm sorry, but I'm not going to take any lessons from the honourable gentleman opposite on industrial relations on the railway.
Rachel Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I've launched a petition in my constituency asking Warwickshire County Council to take our buses back under public control. Almost 30% of buses don't run on time, and my constituents are sick and tired of being stranded if they don't have a car. Does the Minister agree with me that the Warwickshire County Council must do the right thing and improve the dismal service that my constituents are currently stuck with?
We know that too often local bus services are late or worse, do not turn up at all, blocking passengers for accessing vital services. Our reforms to the bus sector, combined with that £1 billion investment in buses, will give local leaders the tools that they need to ensure services truly reflect the needs of passengers.
Paul Cullen, Liberal Democrat spokesperson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yesterday, the Chancellor spoke about the importance of getting individuals back to work to grow our economy. However, the uneven coverage, unreliability and accessibility of our transport network is a key barrier, preventing many from doing so. Furthermore, the Chancellor maintained her decision last October to cut the Department of Transport's budget. Does the Secretary of State believe that cutting the transport budget is a good way of increasing economic growth?
Mr. Speaker, I know the Chancellor and her colleagues in the Treasury understand completely the vital importance of investing in our transport infrastructure to unlock the jobs, homes and opportunities of the future.
Claire Hughes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. People in my constituency desperately need better and faster railway connections across our region and into the North West of England to connect with jobs and opportunities. So can I thank the Secretary of State for her positive engagement with the Welsh Government and with the Secretary of State for Wales on the topic of rail infrastructure in Wales. And could I ask if she would meet with me and colleagues from North Wales to discuss specifically latest discussions regarding the North Wales main line?
I'd be happy to meet with my honourable friend, and as I said in my letter to Ken Skates in January, we do recognise that railways in Wales have seen low levels of enhancement spending in recent years, and we will seek to address this.
James Wilde.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. When the Roads Minister came to Norfolk recently, she was reported to have cast doubt over the approval of the A10 West Winch Housing Access Road, which is essential to unlock thousands of homes and economic growth. Without the road, the homes will not be built. So, given the Government's commitment to house building, will the Transport Secretary reaffirm support for this long-standing road scheme?
Well, I was very pleased to find myself in Norfolk announcing huge amounts of investment in the region's roads. There are a large number of schemes that are waiting the outcome of the spending review, and I'd be very happy to write to him about the specific scheme that he raises.
Jane Beghill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in my constituency, Hackney South and Shoreditch, electric bikes are very popular, but they also travel at high speed with a maximum speed limit of 15.5 miles per hour. And because they're heavy, this is causing quite a lot of distress to many residents. They can be speed limited and are often in our parks, but has the Secretary of State considered having a lower speed limit for e-bikes for safety reasons?
Thank my honourable friend for her question. E-cycles must comply with existing regulation, which state that electrical assistance must cut off when it reaches 15.5 miles per hour. The police already have powers available to seize e-cycles and electric motorbikes being used illegally and fine individuals who fail to stop when instructed to do so.
Sir Jeremy Wright.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. The Secretary of State will recognise that it's very difficult
for private landowners or indeed for local authorities along the line of HS2 to plan future development when they don't know what's going to happen to land that's necessary for construction but isn't needed for the long-term operation of the line. A land disposal strategy for HS2 is overdue. Can she produce one urgently? And when she does so, can she seek opportunities to benefit those communities which are suffering the disruption of the line, like those I represent, but won't benefit from its operation?
This is a matter that I'm seeking to expedite, as I recognise the uncertainty that it causes for landowners and communities along the line, and I will take that wider point into consideration that he makes.
Catherine Atkinson.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. East Midlands Railway have a new fleet of trains that will be on the tracks this year, a £400 million investment. These trains can be powered by electrified tracks, but can revert to diesel when travelling on the parts of the Midland Main Line that aren't yet electrified. As electrification means cleaner air, less diesel and quieter and faster trains, does the Minister agree that the more of the track that can be electrified, the better for passengers, communities and the environment?
Mr Speaker, I do agree that government investment in new bi-mode trains and electrification on East Midlands Railway will result in lower energy costs, a reduction in noise emissions and a significant improvement to the railways.
Wendy Morton.
Mr Speaker, as the Minister will be aware, the Government moved the money that was earmarked for Aldridge train station on the whim of the Labour Mayor, sadly making the residents of Aldridge feel that they're no longer cared about. So, as the Government says they're minded to grant open access from Wrexham to Euston, will they work with me to demonstrate to the people of Aldridge that they do actually care by working to deliver a train station by 2027 as planned and as budgeted for by the Conservatives?
I do find it rather strange that every month I come to this dispatch box and I answer the same question from the Honourable Lady when she was actually Rail Minister for a number of years. I'm very, very happy to discuss the importance of Aldridge Station with the Mayor of the West Midlands and to update her further.
Ruth Cabb-Richard.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. Yesterday, the All-Party Parliamentary Group on Cycling and Walking published its report on social justice as it impacts on vulnerable road users. Injuries to pedestrians could be cut significantly with simple zebra crossings without Belisha beacons. This would align with the 2022 Highway Code changes. They're common across the world and they're actually being trialled around the corner from this building in the Department for Transport. So will the government consider amending the guidance to highway authorities so that they can be rolled out across the country?
I thank the Chair of the Transport Select Committee for her question. The Government agrees that everyone should have the opportunity to walk or cycle, whatever their background, and we will obviously study the contents of the report in detail, which correctly highlights some of the ways in which issues like Cycle to Work scheme might be reformed, and the Government agrees that adapted cycles as well included in the report play an important role in providing freedom and independence.
Clive Jones.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. The root cause of the pothole problem in is the Council's inability to afford to resurface roads. Woking Borough Council saw no uplift in resurface funding for many years, with no account of inflation or new roads. This is a legacy of the Conservative Party in government, leading to maintenance funding per mile being effectively halved. Will the Minister meet with me to discuss the urgent need to see funding for resurfacing of new roads?
Well, I'm afraid that his local council has suffered the same fate as councils across the country as a result of the underinvestment in local roads maintenance under the previous government. I know that they will have now benefited from their share of our £500 million uplift from the year ahead, and they are absolutely encouraged to use that to resurface the roads and fix potholes. Thank you, Mr Speaker. Can I thank the Minister for her answer about the work that the Government's doing with businesses to support people dealing with the consequences of the gig economy and road safety. Will she join with me and my work to make sure that the area around Baker Street is safer for residents, and will she work with me and the residents around Baker Street to make the case to gig economy businesses that we need to do more for enforcement and regulation of these workers? Well, she's absolutely right to raise concerns. Obviously, enforcement of the rules around using cycles and e-cycles is a matter for the police, but I'd be very happy to meet with her to discuss that issue.
Jim Shaw.
Mr Speaker, this week Government has given a commitment to EV charging right across to provide extra units across this United Kingdom. So can I ask the Minister a very helpful question? What discussions has she had with the Northern Ireland Assembly in relation to expanding EV charging infrastructure in the devolved nations? How can we help Northern Ireland, Scotland and Wales catch up? Thank you.
Well, we have, as a departmental team, regular meetings with our colleagues across the devolved governments, including about the issues of how we extend EV charging, and I'd be very happy to pick that up with him further.
Jane Copeland.
Speaker, Truro and Falmouth has a very successful passenger branch line, but it also used to be a freight line. There's just a tiny piece of track which quite inexpensively could be reopened to carry that tin and lithium out through the docks. Would the Minister meet with me to discuss the possibility of doing this?
This government is committed to moving more freight from road to rail. It's the right thing to do for our environment and for our economy, and I'd be happy to have that meeting she requests.
Thank you, Mr
Speaker. Derby Station has recently been revealed as the 7th worst for delays in the UK. When people can't get to work on time, it's not just a pain for them, but it impacts productivity and holds back our local economy. Can the Secretary of State outline the steps she is taking to tackle delayed trains in Derby and the East Midlands so that the transport system supports economic growth and not holding it back?
We are working very closely with East Midlands Railway and Cross Country to resolve cancellations and delays, whether related to train fleets, staffing or infrastructure matters.
Sonia Kumar.
The reduction in funding in our waterways by 5% year on year from 2027 will have a detrimental impact on the operations of the Dudley Canal and Cavan Trust. Can I ask my right honourable friend to commit to a review of the funding of our waterways and reinstate this support?
I'm happy to look into that issue for her and provide a written update.
Tom Page.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I recently met with the Managing Director of Moorbus again to call for new services to Hengstbury Head, reinstated services to Throop and better services like an improved 33 and routes to the Royal Bournemouth Hospital and the airport. Does the Minister agree with me that better buses are good for our communities and for our economy, and that there's a lot of growth to unlock in Bournemouth and the South West with better buses?
My honourable friend is a fierce advocate for good public transport in his constituency, and I absolutely agree with the sentiment of what he said.
Final question, Ewan Steinbach.
Project Willow reported back last week amongst the options is a HEFA plant producing sustainable aviation fuel and renewable diesel. The report recommends a delay in the implementation of the HEFA cap. Is this an action the Department are currently considering?
I'm grateful for the honourable member and his commitment to Project Willow at Greymouth. We have put in the 2% mandate from January the 1st that all aviation fuel, 2% of it has to be from sustainable sources. We will be legislating on the revenue support mechanism, and we will be seeing how we can contribute to the future of that great site.
We'll let the front benches change over.